Week, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo faces an ethics hearing and a $1.7 million fine. The case will be heard on Tuesday. It centers around these campaign ads during the gubernatorial race. The executive director of the Ethics Commission says it was a violation for Lombardo to wear his Clark County Sheriff badge and uniform in the ads. In all, they counted up to 68 willful and serious violations. Also included in the potential penalty, a censure and the installation of an ethics officer in the governor's office. The fine would be the largest in state history. The current record is just tens of thousands of dollars. We're talking $1.6 million here. Governor Lombardo's attorney compared the fine to swatting a fly with sledgehammers. We spoke with Democrat and election attorney Bradley Schrager.
Let's be clear about sort of where we are in the procedure as well. The commission itself hasn't done anything. This is akin to, in a criminal context, a prosecutor saying, I find you to, or I consider you to have committed violations, and here's the sentence that I'm asking for. The commission is free to accept that, to increase it or to decrease it at its complete discretion. So, you know, the Ethics Commission hasn't done anything. Essentially, the executive director and his legal staff has asked for that, given the severity of the issues. Should it be that high? Clearly, under law, it is two things. It is both allowed to be this high, even if it seems to be incredibly steep, as you say, but at the same time, this is a pattern of abuse and disregard of ethics standards in Nevada that is itself more or less unprecedented. So we don't know yet how the commission's going to come down on this.
What is ethically wrong about someone who at the time was an elected sheriff using or presenting the fact that he has this position while running for a different position?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's certainly no hiding the fact that he was sheriff when he was running for it, right? It's for a pretty high profile position. But being the sheriff or being a military man, being any of those things, is different in a democracy than it is being a realtor or some woman who works in a paint store, right? It's a different. You were invested with certain powers and authority. Now, the ethics code says you cannot use not just a badge or a gun or your sheriff's uniform. You cannot use the trappings of your office to gain something worth value to you, like another office. You also can't use public property to run for office. So those are the cores, is that the commission has long held that the things that go along with being sheriff, your badge, your uniform, those kinds of things, are the trappings of office that you can't use to run for further office. So, you know, whether or not it's inherently wrong for you to do that, that's long been the law, and everyone knows it, as did Sheriff Lombardo, then Sheriff Lombardo, the entire time that he was running for governor and doing these things.
This is just a recommendation, though. At the end of the day, do you envision the governor or his office or his campaign funding, $1.6 million or whatever it might be, actually being the penalty?
You know, just like when a prosecutor goes in and asks for the maximum sentence or for sentences to run consecutively, that's oftentimes a reflection of how seriously the prosecutor's taking the matter and trying to send signals to the court, or in this instance, the commission, of how serious these violations were. I presume that, like in the courtroom context, this will be resolved at a slightly lower level, but there's no way to let him off. I mean, not only does he stipulate to the fact that he did these things, it's very clear that he knew these things were unlawful. So it's not as if he can get away with not having a penalty at all. That's clearly not going to happen. And as far as the sort of hammer and ant reference, you know, let's remember that this is the sheriff who, you know, the phrase zero tolerance was dripping from his lips, not just when he was running for governor, but as sheriff for many years. So there's zero tolerance for undocumented immigration, zero tolerance for misdemeanor crime, zero tolerance for retail theft, zero tolerance for everything, but apparently a very high tolerance for knowing violations of law. So I don't think you get to call yourself the ant in this analogy when your conduct is in this area.
Now, we did reach out to the governor's attorney and some of his campaign team for this story for some comment. Neither returned our calls. The hearing is on Tuesday up in Reno.